In the early 20th century, modernist architecture or modernism was a style that emerged and responded to large-scale change in both technology and society. It is associated with the functions of buildings and construction and an analytical viewpoint approach to materials, eliminated ornament and decoration, and openness to structural innovation. This approach in architecture shocked society. European architects Mies van der Rohe, Le Corbusier, Walter Gropius, and many more were the pioneers in this movement. They emphasized radically new designs and abandoned past building precedents in the movement. Modernism developed across all fields, not just in architecture but as a means of accommodating and responding to new technologies, advancement in machines, automation, urban planning, and design. The Industrial Revolution played a significant role in developing modernist architecture by functional priority. Modernism encompasses many ways in architecture, including futurism, constructivism, brutalism, de stijl and Bauhaus. In the summer of 1927, Mies van der Rohe served as the first vice president of the Deutscher Workbund translation to German Association of Craftsmen and the originator of the exhibition Die Wohnung translation to the dwelling called the Weissenhof Estate. It is located on the grounds of Killesberg in Stuttgart, Germany. This was the first attempt to solve the problem based on modern design principles. This was a collaborative project with very well-known European architects, including Mies van der Rohe, Le Corbusier, Walter Gropius, Peter Behrens, Victor Bourgeois, Richard Docker, Joseph Frank, Ludwig Heibersheimer, Pierre Jeanneret, Jacobus Johannes, Pieter Oud, Hans Polzig, Adolf Rading, Hans Scheru, Adolf Schneck, Mart Stem, Bruno Taut, and Max Taut. Weissenhof was advertised as a prototype of the future of decent and comfortable homes, regardless of social status. Its housing was customized and furnished on an affordable budget using standard mass construction techniques. This was important because of the upcoming advancements in modern housing with functional living. It showcases the aspiration to provide affordable, simple, efficient, and good quality built housing. It focuses on functional living, clear geometry, and the repetition of modular forms. It forms an international style in architecture. Considering a function in modern architecture was originally introduced by Chicago architect Louis Sullivan, who coined the phrase form follows function, which was intended to focus on the form of the building following the interior space. This demonstrates what early modernist architects wished to see in the future of modern housing. This was an opportunity for them to demonstrate their housing internationally. The idea of space and function in architecture became the main topic in the modern movement. Its purpose of creating better living standards and experiences. This project is seen as the Bible of housing when looking at modernist architecture and is considered one of the most significant landmarks of modern housing. At a subsistence level became the self-imposed order of the architect and was also the dominant theme of the first CIAM congresses. As the existence of modernist buildings was negligible, time passed to the year 1928, when the request of prominent architectural figures of Europe to hold the first meeting of CIAMT known as Congress Internationaux d'Architecture Moderne, or International Congresses of Modern Architecture, an organization founded at the Chateau of Les Serres, Switzerland, led by modernist architect Le Corbusier, Karl Moser, and art historian Siegfried Giedion. They proposed advancing modern architecture to rationalize and utilize improving low-cost dwellings and the interest of society worldwide. CIAM goals were 1. To formulate the contemporary program of architecture. 2. To advocate the idea of modern architecture. 3. To forcefully introduce the idea into technical, economic, and social circles. And 4. To see the resolution of architectural problems. And 2 drafts of a work program consisting of 6 questions to the Congress were 1. Modern architectural expression. 2. Standardization. 3. Hygiene. 4. Urbanism. 5. Primary school education. And 6. Governments and the modern architectural debate. This prepared Le Corbusier shifts his architectural philosophy of 5 points in architecture, including pilotis, open floor plan, open facade, horizontal windows, and roof garden. One of their proposals, CIAM2, Existence Minimum, Minimal Dwelling, is improving urban dwellings, open plans, and open facades and using reinforced steel and concrete to construct large-scale buildings. In designing the well-known structure House 1-4, Mies van der Rohe kept 2 lots of the Weissenhof Estate for himself. He ensured these lots had a scenic view of Stuttgart at an elevated vantage point. The design was different compared to the other houses. He designed a four-story residential building with the facade consisting of a homogeneous field of white plaster and black fixtures and balconies that defined the entrances. The structure is articulated over these four levels and has a garden terrace roof designed for multiple uses. This was used as an expression of abstraction and minimal design in a modernist aspect. As Mies was overseeing the construction of the residential building, he used a skeleton structure or steel structure frame that characterized the geometry of the elevation of the site. This was the appropriate system of construction in this respect. It enables rationalization of production and allows freedom of internal structure. This is where Mies introduced a flexible and adaptive plan and adapted it to residential needs. Setting out the kitchen and bathroom as fixed points on the plan with accounts of mechanical services allows the remaining space of the apartment units to be divided into variable partition walls, and its reasonable living requirements can be satisfied. The internal framework ensured that the partition walls could be laid out and configured for residents' personal lifestyle needs. Therefore, the design is different regarding geometries and functions without any constraints. Mies said he had chosen this design concept to accommodate changing conditions, their expectations of concern within the apartments, and their desire for maximum freedom in designing their own interior spaces. Furthermore, the design of Mies van der Rohe House 1-4 deserves the attention of its function and concept of space within the interior. The construction of the skeleton structure is important, as other architects would use the analogy of automobile construction in their buildings. The reason is as automobile construction is very well built, leading to their buildings being constructed to a high standard. During the interwar period, architects confronted the uprise of population and building of mass with rational and functional living spaces. In 1929, the CIAM 2 Existence Minimal Dwelling held its second Congress. Their proposal was tested against the formulation of space standards of necessary minimum to increase the quality of housing and reduce the construction cost. This approach formulates Mies van der Rohe's idea of manner. The question of rationalization and standardization is only one aspect of the problem as a whole. Rationalization and standardization are a mere means to an end. They should never be allowed to become the end in themselves. The underlying problem of the new dwelling is essentially mental, and the struggle for the new dwelling is merely one aspect of the overall struggle for new forms of living. Understanding Mies's manner is presumed in the search for a minimal design for living conditions and hygiene. These were part of the work program draft submitted by Congress. The spaces of the Weissenhof Siedlung houses 1-4 were to maximize and personalize the lifestyle needs of residents. Regarding the design of kitchens, removable furniture and storage spaces, rational and, above all, minimum housing and the room sizes mainly depend on the layouts of the furniture in an area. In perspective, Mies's design concept to accommodate the changing conditions for residents in the space of Weissenhof Siedlung houses 1-4, the room can be limited to a certain extent in configuration to lifestyle needs and functions. This suggests that Mies experiments on the overall struggle of the uprise of population. The design was a two-family home structure known as Houses 14 and 15, coordinated by Mies van der Rohe, who needed Le Corbusier's participation, who was influential at the time and contributed his home design to the development in 1926. He invited Pierre Heinrich to design two detached residences for education purposes for the middle class. Le Corbusier and Heinrich were given schematic guidelines for each dwelling's location, size, budget, and program. The developer was disappointed in the proposal from them and other architects, resulting in cost overruns and code violations. Due to budget concerns, the committee wanted to reduce the built area of the design by nearly 40%. Le Corbusier and Heinrich redesigned their proposal of two houses and converted them into smaller, attached dwellings occupying the same footprint as the original home. These two attached dwellings came to be known as House 14 and 15. The committee wasn't convinced by the two dwellings and was pushing Le Corbusier only to have one dwelling. However, Le Corbusier was not willing to negotiate the proposal. Of the 21 structures designed by 17 architects within the development house, 14 and 15 attracted the most interest, receiving both positive and negative comments. Le Corbusier described it as a machine for living. It was designed with the logic and precision of automobiles and airplanes. It demonstrated the principle of extreme producing and would become the early manifestation of his revolutionary vision for the future of architecture. It was designed by Le Corbusier and Heinrich and became a critical prototype in 20th century architecture. The house consisted of reducing cost, simplifying housekeeping, and improving living conditions. The structure was made out of reinforced concrete to embody the qualities of Le Corbusier 5-point manifesto. This housing theory of the 20th century incorporated columns to lift the building above the ground, the roof garden, the free plan, the long windows, and the free facade. The 5 points included: 1. Pilotes. Instead of walls, it has columns or pilotes. Arranged at certain fixed intervals, the entire building was positioned on columns retaining the garden underneath the building and removed from contact with the damp earth. 2. Roof gardens. Enabled a thermal barrier in exterior temperatures. The roof gardens represent, for a city, the requisition of the entire built-up area. 3. The free layout on plan. The pilotes system enabled over-plan living and partitioned to close rooms off. There were no load-bearing walls, creating an easy construction method with more feasibility. 4. Strip window. The rectangular openings in the facade had good light and air control, resulting in the internal space being evenly lit from wall to wall. And 5. Free elevational treatment enabled the design for each floor to cantilever out beyond the load-bearing columns, rather like a balcony drawn around the building pushing out over the load-bearing structure. This allowed more flexibility and completely freed the design. This allowed the floor plan to adapt to the time and condition of the occupants. The exterior of the house showcases his ideology. The horizontal windows gather natural sunlight into the open spaces. The roof garden has an open frame. The roof demonstrates another world in planning that brings a sense of home to residents. In World War I and with rapid population increase, Corbusier's idea was to lift the courtyard onto the roof to reduce the opacity of land for further developments in the future. Corbusier included frames to showcase an idea of a picture frame. The interior space was very minimal and spacious. The kitchen and bathroom spaces next to each other. The building can be seen as a luxurious house, but its primary design purpose was towards working-class families. The design was to cater for the Industrial Revolution to architecture, mass-producing buildings, and later cities, like cars or light bulbs. Le Corbusier was a part of another group creating a movement in 1928. The group was called CIAM, known as Congrès International d'Architecture Moderne. It consisted of architects who intended to advance modernism and internationalism in architecture from 1928 to 1956. They saw themselves as an elite group revolutionizing architecture to serve the interest of society. Some members included Le Corbusier, Walter Gropius, and Richard Neutra. One of the theories they worked on was the functional city. The idea of modern architecture includes the link between the phenomenon of architecture and the prevailing economic system. CIAM created the functional city theory. Land planning based on zoning by functional categories reflected the more significant shift in planning through the 1920s away from three-dimensional urban design. The CIAM urbanism stressed the importance of architects influencing public opinion and government clients through academic training, the theoretical consideration focusing on minimal dwelling. Furthermore, these two case studies summarize similar characteristics in the modernist movement: the desire to focus on function, decrease construction costs, and increase the quality of living.